Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It's 6:06. It's O'Connor and Company. Thanks for tuning in this Monday morning in your nation's capital. We got a lot to get to. At 7:05, Joe DeGenevo will be our guest. At 7:35, Jackie Cushman-Gingrich on the push for a John Adams Memorial in town. 8:05, Asr Nomani has done a deep dive in who's funding these anti-Tesla protests and violence. And at 8:35, Governor Scott Walker on tomorrow's critical election in Wisconsin. I'm Larry O'Connor alongside Julie Gunlock. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning.
You know this guy, Ezra Klein?
Oh, yeah. He's so smart.
Ezra Klein, yes. He was part of what was called the Juice Box Mafia during the Obama administration, right? He and Matt Iglesias and a couple of these punks in their 20s who embraced, they basically used their platforms at the Washington Post to push policies, big government liberal policies like Obamacare, to explain to us how this is the dawn of a new age of progressive politics and governance under Barack Obama. He's able to get all of these incredible progressive ideas pushed through, and it's going to be fantastic, and it's the utopia we've always dreamed of. Fast forward to today, where the healthcare system is broken worse than it was before the Affordable Care Act. Care is not affordable in any way whatsoever. In fact, it's way more expensive, and you can draw a direct line to Obamacare for making it that expensive. And it's also incredibly inefficient. And it made a lot of people rich, though. A lot of people, a lot of liberals who were connected to the corporations that ended up benefiting from it. And so there's inefficiency, there's broken regulations, and there's high cost run-ups, and there's corruption. And that's what goes along with every big government program. Just look at all the utopians of socialism and communism over the last 100 years. Always ends up with people starving in the streets or blood flowing down those streets, I think. So Ezra Klein is now with the New York Times because, you know, you always get upgraded and promoted when you've got failed ideas. He's now written a book about how liberal governance and Democrats who run our big cities and run major government programs out of Washington, D.C. have failed the progressive movement because of the inefficiency and incompetence of how these programs are implemented, which is great. Thanks for seeing the light, Ezra. Yeah. The problem is he believes that the real solution is not to get these things. Yeah, we still need government to solve these problems. We just need to be better at doing it.
Right. It's the whole communism hasn't really been tried, you know.
So he's selling the book. He's pushing the book. He went on Gavin Newsom's podcast, of all things. It's like all these people are dressed up in the hot dog suits saying, we're trying to figure out who's to blame for this. They're the meme. They're literally the hot dog guy meme. He went on Bill Maher's show. So here he is with Jon Stewart, fellow traveler there in liberal circles, on Jon Stewart's podcast. Because, you know, you got to have a podcast, Jules.
I know.
And he raised as an example this thing that had bipartisan support in the first year of the Biden administration. I think it may have been one of the first major bills passed, which was to get broadband to rural areas. Remember that whole thing? You know, one of the things we learned during the pandemic is that if you rely on broadband, like kids who had to do school via, you know, broadband and Wi-Fi and Zoom, that if you live in a rural area and you don't have broadband access, remember Biden used to talk about families who would sit in the parking lot at a McDonald's to do school. And it's like, well, okay, if the neighborhood McDonald's figured out how to get it, you know, but I guess we need government solutions. That's fine. If you decide that this is part of our telecommunications infrastructure and broadband needs to be made available and implemented in rural areas that are underserved right now, great. There are ways to do that. Elon Musk has said, hey, my Starlink system is great. You can access the internet broadband anywhere on the planet. You can do it on an airplane. You can do it on a cruise ship. It's like Sam I Am. And it only costs, you know, this much money, and we'll do it, you know, for that much money. Let's go, government. And the government said, nope, we've got a better idea. $42 billion was Joe Biden's broadband program. You'll remember Commissioner Brandon Carr of the FCC was railing against the fact that after $42 billion, not one person got their broadband. Take a listen. Cut 9.
In 2021, Vice President Harris agreed to lead the administration's signature $42 billion effort to extend internet service to millions of Americans. It's now been 1,039 days since that program was enacted. After all of that time, not one person has been connected to the internet. Not one home, not one business. Not even one shovel worth of dirt has been turned.
Now, of course, during the 2024 presidential election, that was considered a right-wing talking point and an attack. Well, here we are a couple of months later, and one man's right-wing talking point and attack on Kamala Harris is now this man, if you're Ezra Klein, this man's liberal, progressive, enlightened discovery. Yeah. So that's all to set up this remarkable conversation between these two liberals who still don't get it, who still think the solution is government. Take a listen as Ezra Klein explains to Jon Stewart exactly what went into getting rural homes implemented on broadband. Cut 10 we'll start with.
We have to issue the notice of funding opportunity within 180 days. That's step one. Step two, which all 56 state applicants completed, is states who want to participate must submit a letter of intent. After they do that, they can submit a request for up to $5 million in planning grants. Then the NTIA, step 4, has to review and approve and award, again, planning grants, not broadband grants, planning grants.
And it's still at the NTIA. It's still at the first step.
All right, so the NTIA must issue a NOFO within 180 days. States who want to participate must submit their letter of intent. Step 3, they can request up to $5 million in planning grants.
Just planning.
Just planning. Step 4, the requests are reviewed, approved, and awarded by the NTIA, which currently all 56, 3 years later, all 56 applicants had passed through at least step 5. It took more than 3 years. So it's a long time. States must submit a 5-year action plan. So the states kind of go back and they kind of think about how they're going to do this. And they don't just say, okay, thank you for the money. We're going to spend it. And you can see how it worked out later. We're like, here's our 5-year action plan. Then the FCC must publish the broadband data maps before NTIA allocates funds. So having done the NOFO, the letters of intent, the request for planning grants, then the review, approval, and awarding of the planning grants, then the 5-year action plans. In between that, the federal government has to put forward a map saying where it thinks we need rural broadband subsidies. And then, of course, the states need an opportunity to challenge the map for accuracy. And you can imagine this doesn't all happen in like a day. Okay.
Not even a day, or certainly, as we've learned, even 4 years, which, again, they could have just said, hey, Musk has a network of satellites. He's got Starlink. Let's make a deal. Let's figure it out, and it's done. There's more to this. This conversation about the implementation of broadband for rural communities, which, again, is something that both Republicans and Democrats agreed to.
Yeah.
But then it gets handed to the administrative state, this beast that keeps trying to protect itself. And, if government got stuff done, even if it made mistakes getting stuff done, we'd have a different view of it.
Remember that entire conversation they just had was about planning. Just the planning phase.
Nothing's been done. Still nothing's been done. This goes on for like 5 minutes. We got a little bit more on this, but I know that federal employees get upset with the whole Doge thing and the Musk thing, and they don't like that he goes up there with a chainsaw, and because that seems really heartless and cold. But you have to understand, the reason why so many of us in this country cheer and get excited when we see that chainsaw is because of this. They have created their own monster here. They can't get anything done. Yeah, can I remind you? $42 billion on this program. 4 years later, nothing's been done. All right, so a little bit more. Jon Stewart, Ezra Klein, as they both realize together